Hey everyone, I'm so glad you're here. Go ahead and pull up a chair. Today, we're diving straight into an explainer that unpacks something honestly just truly fascinating. We're going to sit down together and look at how an ancient biblical text, specifically 2 Peter 2, actually provides this flawless analytical blueprint for navigating our modern world right now, in 2026. It's a fierce warning, sure, but as we go through it, you're going to see that it feels way less like ancient history and, well, a whole lot more like a live feed of the digital age we're living in today. So let's frame our entire discussion around one profoundly important realization. The greatest danger is not when evil shocks society. The greatest danger is when evil becomes ordinary. Think about that for a second. Societal collapse, it rarely happens with a sudden massive shock. No, it happens through the quiet, really subtle normalization of corruption. It's all about what a culture just slowly begins to accept as a totally normal part of everyday life. All right, part 1. The architecture of moral decay. Let's look at how the Apostle Peter exposes the hidden mechanics of spiritual deception. Notice the very specific issues Peter highlights here. He is actively warning believers about individuals who might appear super spiritual on the outside, but inwardly, they're secretly corrupting the truth. We are talking about false teachers, lust, greed, moral collapse, the whole shebang, because this isn't really about external enemies, It's about corruption wearing religious clothing. It's people who manipulate faith for their own personal gain, normalize sin, and basically mock holiness by choosing to live by their own appetites instead of objective truth. And actually, that internal deception is exactly what makes the architecture of this decay so incredibly dangerous. Moving on to part 2, the frog in the pot. To really grasp how this deception takes root, we've got to look at subtle compromise. You guys have probably heard the old parable of the frog in the warming pot, right? If you drop a frog into boiling water, it jumps out immediately to save its life. But if the water just warms up slowly, the frog simply adapts to the temperature until it dies, entirely unaware of the threat. It's wild, but a culture doesn't collapse overnight. It adapts. First, there's a small compromise. Oh, it's not that bad. Then it becomes, well, everyone does it. Pretty soon it's, hey, times have changed. And finally, truth is relative. Through these tiny, acceptable shifts, darkness eventually just feels totally normal. Which brings us to part 3, ancient traps, instant influence. Let's explore exactly how our current era stacks up against antiquity. Now, you might be asking yourself, is 2026 really worse than the Roman Empire or the days of Noah? Well, look at the contrast. Ancient Rome definitely had profound moral decay, for sure. But they couldn't stream that corruption into every single home 24/7. Human nature hasn't changed. We aren't inherently more sinful than the Romans, but the speed of influence, it is completely unprecedented. Our digital world is this massive amplifier. Evil and temptation can spread to millions in literal seconds. Quite literally, temptation lives right inside our pockets. Part 4. The exhaustion of believers. If you've been feeling utterly drained by the constant noise of modern culture, listen up, because there is an ancient precedent for exactly what you're experiencing. Peter brings up Sodom and Gomorrah because they perfectly represent cultures where corruption was actually celebrated. But look how their sins map directly onto 2026. It's uncanny. Where they had violence and arrogance, we have viral violence packaged as content, and outrage algorithms specifically designed to profit off of human division. I mean, they turned evil into entertainment. We commercialize innocence to monetize clicks. It's just a stunning parallel when you really look at it. The biblical text describes the righteous man, Lot, as being vexed by the filthy conversation of the wicked around him. Vexed, meaning tormented, worn down, and deeply distressed. His soul literally suffered from his environment. And honestly, this perfectly captures the spiritual overstimulation so many of us feel today. Scrolling hour after hour through hatred, vanity, and mockery, it simply wears down the soul. Just imagine walking through a crowded marketplace where every single booth is screaming right at your face, "Feed your flesh! Indulge now! You deserve it!" That's what your smartphone is. It acts as an infinite scroll. It's an environment where entire industries are built entirely on monetizing your insecurity, your envy, and your addiction. It's relentlessly demanding that you indulge your appetites without any restraint whatsoever. Okay, part 5, avoiding spiritual numbness. So how do we navigate this incredibly noisy marketplace? The absolute greatest danger of all this digital pollution isn't necessarily immediate destruction. It's losing our spiritual sensitivity. Imagine a mirror that's meant to reflect pure light, but over time it's exposed to smoke. The darkness accumulates until it just can no longer reflect anything clearly. This is exactly what constant exposure to a toxic culture does to your conscience. you eventually just stop recognizing the darkness piling up around you. So to keep your mirror clean, we have to practice 3 daily habits. First, intentionally unplugging to break that infinite scroll. Second, daily reflection to spot exactly where culture is subtly warming our pot. And third, grounding ourselves deeply in objective truth before we ever even look at our screens. And we even see this numbness at the leadership level. Consider the parallel Peter draws with the ancient prophet Balaam. Balaam had spiritual authority, right? But he loved money way more than obedience. His greed completely blinded him to really obvious spiritual danger. And today, we see modern equivalents all over the place. Individuals who exploit faith for profit and preach whatever is popular instead of what's truthful. Greed just fundamentally corrupts spiritual vision. Think of it like a massive skyscraper. Outwardly, everything looks great. The lights are on, the elevators are running, business is continuing as usual. But underneath, tiny cracks in the foundation are spreading entirely unnoticed. This is exactly how civilizations and even our own individual lives can function outwardly while completely decaying inwardly. The hidden damage just keeps spreading, and when the collapse finally hits, it looks super sudden to the observer, even though it was building up for years. Part 6, the lighthouse in the storm. Now, Peter's message isn't just doom and gloom. He pivots to provide a really profound anchor of hope. This quote from verse 9, it's the turning point of the entire chapter. The Lord knoweth how to deliver the godly out of temptations. We have to remember that God's purpose is mixed with preservation. Just as he preserved Noah through the flood and rescued Lot from Sodom, he knows exactly how to preserve his people right inside collapsing cultures. God still sees, he still rescues, and he still judges rightly. That is huge. Imagine an incredibly violent storm out at sea. The waves are crashing, the fog is thick, ships are losing their direction left and right. Some captains might mock the lighthouse, others ignore it, and some just follow false lights straight into the rocks. But the lighthouse, it remains completely steady. Christ is that lighthouse. He does not change with the culture, he does not move with digital trends, and his light absolutely does not dim just because the cultural storms are getting more intense. As we wrap up this explainer together, the most important takeaway isn't just understanding the mechanics of moral decay, but how you actually respond to it. The text warns us that cultures will celebrate the very things that destroy them. So the question I want to leave you with today is this: how will you remain spiritually awake and discerning in the relentless noise of modern digital culture? When the world insists on normalizing the dark, what steps will you take to stay grounded, humble, and fiercely faithful to the lighthouse? Keep your eyes open, guard your conscience, and whatever you do, keep seeking the truth.